Hello, everyone who is live online with us today. And for those that watch the video afterwards, of course, also a warm welcome. So, yeah, today, January 2024, 3 years. It's 3 years since Johnny and I are running the KQL show. So, as usual, your hosts. And before we get into the details, I'd like to give the community a big thank you for following us, for being part of the KQL community. As you can see here, we have quite some followers on Twitter where we try to share when there's interesting news around KQL. We have a LinkedIn group, and of course, we have our YouTube channel. And as I watch YouTube now and then, I see people always say, please press the subscribe button. So if you happen to come across our YouTube channel, please push that subscribe button. The agenda today, as usual, we share some updates, what stuff that Johnny and I have found that we find worth mentioning. Then today we have a very special guest, Ilana from the Microsoft Log Analytics team. I hope I did that introduction right, but you will have the possibility later to introduce yourself in more detail. We then have, as usual, a section about learning KQL, where Johnny is going to share some interesting topics with us. And last but not least, as always, our section, what did you do with KQL this month? So without further ado, let us get into the news around KQL. First things first, I'm pretty sure you're all familiar with the names below here. So they have released a definitive guide to KQL book. It's available on Amazon, although I must mention that when I wanted to order this, it said it's only available as of March, but maybe that depends on the region I'm in Europe. Nevertheless, if you like lecture around KQL, definitely consider buying this book. Then training. There's a tons of resources available for training, starting with raw trends. Must learn KQL. We have specialized training from Mehmet Blue Raven for security analysts. But I also came across this training through a post from Matt Zorich. And I actually quickly want to show you what this is about, because this is a really cool thing I noticed. So let me quickly share my browser. Yeah, okay. So if you go to KC7, you can join there, and it's for free. That's a cool thing. And it's a little bit similar like the Kusto Detective, just in the beginning, way simpler. And the reason why this is, and actually I only found out once I started doing this, who is offering this for free. And I find this an amazing story, because read the blog posts, this was funded by some local US state. And what they did, they actually used this to attract young people, so high schoolers, to cybersecurity. And if you read through the blog post, you see all those kids, first doing some paperwork and drawings manually. And then they have been taught into, solving challenges by actually using Kusto query language. So like many other trainings, there is a Azure Data Explorer that you can access for free. And then you can go into the various challenges. So the first one is this one, balloons over Iowa. And it really starts simple, like this. You have some questions, some simple email. But I really believe that, if you're totally new into KQL, and we're doing this show not only for the advanced people, but we also try to evangelize the KQL language, and there's new people that have to learn this every day. So if you happen to come across this and you want to find another cool and pleasant and enjoyable way of learning KQL, take a look at this. You run your queries, you submit the answer, and then you can go further. And be aware sometimes the questions relate to the previous questions. So make sure to keep your results in your history, like I have here. And yeah, I really find this quite a enjoyable way also to either improve or just practice KQL, but maybe also your way of thinking, analytic thinking, putting the dots together. Again, it's totally free, and it's even completed by juniors. So maybe also for you, a little motivation. Good. Let me go back to the presentation. So next, a couple of resources we've come across. Bertjan, he submitted an update on his blog around useful KQL security sources. We then have a couple of cool blog posts from Mehmet and from Mikhailos around the union operator, but also working with extracting nested fields in Kusto, and also some good example about the external data. We spoke about some of those earlier in our show, but again, repeating stuff and maybe also see some other how other people do this might be useful to you. Then lastly, Bertjan also shared an interesting detection query, which I've come across as well. So if you are in cybersecurity, definitely look for those logging attempts in your signing logs that are coming from the application office home. And then if you narrow that down and look at the user agent strings, usually you will find out that someone is trying to attack you. So more details here in the links as shown here. Another little tip I'd like to share with you, for those of you totally familiar with Kusto Data Explorer, maybe a no-brainer, but I actually also a couple of weeks ago thought, okay, everybody or many people are talking about this Kusto Data Explorer. It's a client application that you can install locally, and you can also use it to, get access to your either ADX, so Azure Data Explorer, but you can also connect to your log analytics workspace, like for example, Sentinel. And why would you do that? I'm not yet a seasoned Kusto Explorer user, but one of the cool things I found is, you can also work with maps and those sort of things. So the reference here, how to actually connect with Kusto Explorer to your log analytics workspace. You'll find the details in this link here. But basically, the trick is that within the Kusto Explorer, you have to add a new connection. Yeah, and then you have to provide your subscription ID and your workspace name, and then you're good to go. And you will see, access to your log analytics workspace light up in the Kusto Explorer application. And from there, you can run your queries as usual. So yeah, if you're interested in this, definitely give this a try. Or if anyone in this session has experience with it and can add more about the benefits or the extra things you can do here, feel free to speak up. Yeah. Good. And with that, that's basically the news for the last couple of weeks. And I would like to now to introduce our very special guest, Ilana Weitzer. I hope I pronounced that name correctly.
Yeah.
And the mic is yours.
Okay. So thank you for inviting and introducing me. So I just would like to add that it's my colleague Elyran, who is a designer. He's also here.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Elyran is designer and I am product manager in Log Analytics team. So I believe if you use Sentinel or Azure Monitor, you are familiar with Log Analytics. And if you explore your data today in Log Analytics, you obviously write KQL queries, and we all love KQL. It's a very powerful language, obviously. But saying that, we heard from our customers that often they need the ability to explore the data without a need to write KQL queries. So now we have a new feature which we would like to introduce you and also hear your feedback, which offers two ways to explore data. One way is using simple mode, which actually offers the most common functionality of Azure Monitor logs and enables to do it in very intuitive spreadsheet-like experience. And we will demonstrate just in a few minutes. And another mode is KQL mode. In this mode, you will be able to do whatever you do today, write complex KQLs and doing very powerful things which only KQL enable. So we would like to present you here your feedbacks, and actually after that, if you have any ideas or any asks from Log Analytics, any capabilities you would like to have, we would definitely love to hear your feedback. So I will let Elyran to present this feature. So please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Let me introduce myself. My name is Elyran. I'm the lead designer here at the Log Analytics team at Azure. And I'm going to present you what we call Log Analytics Next Gen, or simple mode in some cases. And feel free to stop me at any point if you want to ask something. And I will start sharing my screen. Just a moment. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, so I'm going to skip this for now because I'm going to go back to it in a few moments. What we want to show you today is if you are familiar with the Log Analytics UI, you probably already recognize like some new changes from the existing UI. It's hopefully would get launched very, very soon, but we have been working on it for a very long time. And like Ilana said, is the ability to help users who are not that very well versed with writing KQL to still easily query their data and do basic stuff like filtering the data, doing simple operations, etc., etc. So I'm going to start by, for example, selecting a table. And as you already could see, it was much easier for me right now to run like a simple query on the table because we have done some changes to the entire UI of Log Analytics, enabling you to preview the table, the data inside the table with just one click. And as you can see, I already got like a sample of the first 1,000 results. And now I am able to add stuff like filters based on the data itself. And I can use the UI and already see like the values that I have from within the data, which is a huge improvement that our users ask us to. Let's see, for example, I want to filter by computer. I can see this column here. I can see the available values that I can select easily as many values as I want. I can also search for them and see the available values. And I'm also able to do a little bit more advanced stuff like writing an equal condition or like contains and starts with. And then I would get like a very, not very sophisticated, but very easily I was able to do like a where clause where I can say computer starts with retail and get all the results without having to write a single line of KQL code. I can do stuff like search the table for any string that I want. I don't have to select a column. I can write whatever I want. Let's say I need to find this specific IP, or maybe I know like a fraction of this IP. I can search for it, and I would easily get results that contain all of the conditions that I've written here, quote unquote. Let's do another stuff. For example, I can aggregate the results based on, for example, let's see, I want to go out by OS type. I would be able to do it very easily. I would find the column, do a count, or maybe a distinct count, and hopefully I would get a meaningful results. And at any point, if you can see here, I can go back to the old way, or now we are going to call it KQL mode or advanced mode for now. I will be able to see the entire KQL query that was written based on the operations that I did in the UI. And I'm even able to go back to simple mode, or I can continue writing here whatever I want and add to it. A few more things that I want to show. Let's say I need to run like one of our example queries. We are still able to do that. Let me switch back to the simple mode and start fresh. Let's say I needed this query. Obviously, no results. Let's try another one. No. Maybe if I would change the time range, I would be able to find results. No, but let's imagine I would have seen results here. As you can see, I am able, actually, I want to find like a query that would give me any results. Maybe this one would give me. Yeah, so I was able to run a query. And let's say I needed to remove that, and I would run it again. And that's the result that I got. I would still be able, as a user, to run an example query or a query that I found, on Google or stuff like that. And I would still be able to add filters through the simple mode UI without having to have written the query myself, right? Let's say I chose one of the example queries or pasted the query of my own, and I would still be able to access this UI, which we've worked really hard to make sure that users will be able to do, because we thought about our quote unquote simple users who are not that very well versed with KQL. So if they got a query from their colleague, they would still be able to use this UI and not be locked, quote unquote, into the advanced UI where they would have to write KQL if they want to do something with the data. We call it, you can see here, instead of where I had the table name here, if I am running or seeing a custom query, we call it a user query here. And if I would click this tag here, I would be able to see the query that is like inside this user query, but I would still be able to switch between simple and advanced at any point. One last thing that I want to show right now is we have still thought about users who don't need this like hand holding and they know KQL from sleep, and they want to ever be bothered or slowed down by the simple mode. They would still be able to choose their own, we call it now work mode. So if I would switch here to advanced, I would still get the old UI wherever I go, right? If I need to open it from Sentinel, or if I need to open it when I'm creating an alert, for an example, I would still get the quote unquote old UI, which we call now the advanced mode UI, and not have to go through the entire cumbersome process of switching from simple to advanced. We still thought about these use cases where we don't want to, take the thing that you're very well familiar with and have you learn new UI or do more steps in order to get to the UI that you want. Yeah, and that's pretty much the demo that I wanted to show.
Cool.
If anyone has any questions,
Yeah, I see the question. Yeah, thank you, Elyran. The new feature in private preview. Yes, currently it's in private preview. So we will post you which feature flag actually you can use on any workspace, and you will be able to see this feature and to use it. And in near future, we will actually publish it to all. But at the beginning, it will not appear by default. Only if you wish, you will click Try New Log Analytics, okay, and only then you will see this experience.
It would be an opt-in experience. We won't hurt anything or like break anything. You would be able to opt into this experience and even opt out back if you don't find it to your liking for any reason. And you would be able to provide us a much appreciated feedback to learn and to improve even further.
I see another question. Facets and filters are showing only data from 1,000 rows that are on screen. So by default, okay.
Yeah, you're correct, right? I would show even like this because I think it would be interesting. We've also added a new ability here. You can see that is like exposing the limit operator like right there on the screen, and by default it would be on 1,000. But you as a user would be able also to change the limit to whatever you want, and even the default limit that you would like to work on, and obviously write whatever limit that you want. And you are correct. The data that we are pulling from is only from these 1,000 results in order to even like put on even more safe rails and help users not like get like dead ends and like empty result sets. We are pulling from the 1,000, but if you would expand this set of results, you would get results from the entire set of results that you see. Obviously, it will take a bit more time because we are gathering more results at each run.
Oh, yeah. Now, I was lucky to already see this, but actually to maybe give the audience, some possible use cases. Just today, I was working with a client, and I explained to one of their engineers, who I know is not super familiar with KQL. He asked me, well, how can I access this data? And the data I'm actually talking about is for those familiar with endpoint management. We now have Windows Labs. So with Windows Labs, people can in the Intune portal get a local administrator password. And basically out of the box, it's also doing auditing. So in the Azure audit log, we will see logs whenever someone retrieves that password through the Entra ID portal. Now, of course, in the long run, we might create a nice and shiny workbook, where they can look at the data. But honestly, what will the workbook do? The workbook will select the workspace, and it will maybe have some drop downs, to filter the specific event, right? Now, we can balance, depending on how often that's needed. Why would I now create a whole workbook with whistles and bells? And I was thinking actually today as I was speaking, but I could of course not yet disclose that. But my forward thinking is, well, maybe in the future for such simple things, where developing a whole workbook in Azure might not be worth the effort versus, making the data more accessible to maybe users that need now and then go to those logs, maybe for auditing purposes. And instead of sharing a whole bunch of KQL queries with them, I would now tomorrow share exactly this solution. So I would say go to simple mode. You might have audit logs. You might have already predefined the operation type, but then the people are good to go. And if he wants to drill into what users have retrieved the password or on which devices, etc., that can now be done in a very easy and simple way using the Kusto simple mode.
Yeah, thank you. Very good explanation, actually.
There, I see kind of the benefit. Or when just things have to go quick, or imagine you're on the phone and you cannot type with two hands. At least with a mouse, you can now do some KQL magic as well. So curious what our listeners are thinking about this feature. If you are too shy to speak up, please give either a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or share a heart with our colleagues.
Do you think maybe someone can tell if even advanced users who know KQL may find this feature useful? What do you think? Or you still would prefer to go directly to advanced mode and write KQL?
I think it will be a bit of both, because if you want to do a quick search, you can use the easy mode. But then I think if you want to go 1, 2, 3, maybe from the third layer deep, then you will switch to advanced mode. That's the first 2, 3 steps of your investigation, or if you're data collecting or whatever you're doing. Then I think to start with the basic mode would be nice.
I also think where it's quite useful, and I, as we speak, I remember that within SEMP, there's a workbook developed by some crazy guy. I mean, when I looked at the inner workings of that workbook, that's crazy. But it really also helps to familiarize with the data, right? I mean, normally when I look at a table, first thing I do is, table name, get schema, so to understand the attributes. And then, I take a bunch of rows and I expound the data. And I think, depending on the data table, if it's not too complex and doesn't have too many nested JSON objects in it, this might also be a very practical way to just, get familiar, with the data, like you can aggregate and understand, what are actually the values in the data without constantly having to type, summarize count by and that sort of operators. So that is where I see maybe a use case for advanced users. But again, I think the example that I gave before is where I also see a big advantage. Yeah. So we have some feedback in the chat. Let me see.
Yeah, actually, I can filter out in the property value by just clicking on it. Yes, actually, I can show. Let me share my screen. Yeah, it will be possible. You will be able to go, for example, severity level. It will be possible to click on include or exclude, and it will just, currently we are working to implement this functionality, but this is the intention, that it will add filter or will remove filter. Yeah, I believe this was the question. Let's see another question. I'm not using KLA, but usually I do lighter search in Kibana because it's easy to filter things out by just clicking. Okay, so did I answer your question? I think the answer from Gleb. Also, it would be nice to remove the columns. Can you please clarify what you mean to remove the columns?
We have this functionality already, Ilana. I maybe skipped on it and
I mean, if you like right click a column, like if you in Kibana, it's a different interface. Yeah, it would be easier to talk just. I mean, in Kibana, it's a different interface, but can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
we hear you. Yeah,
yeah. So, but I mean, not the show columns, but like right click on column, like category, and then just remove it. That would be very nice. Like
actually, that's a really good feedback. We are planning to add more functionality that would like enable you to do stuff like Ilana just showed on the grid itself to affect the quote unquote query. Right now, we do support a way for a user to, for example, easily, I need to see only 4 columns out of the how many. I would be able to do it. I don't know what happened here, but obviously it should work. But what you just said is actually a really nice idea, that maybe clicking here and like remove this column, or like maybe show only this column, we would definitely explore these areas.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like my like workflow is I go to Kibana and just see the like data there, and just like filter it out by repeatedly clicking on things that I don't like, and by like creating my current view, like, and this view may be like, yeah, like you do, like tenants and I don't know, like message, like log message, or if I suspect that there's a problem with like Kubernetes nodes, I will just enable myself with column these columns like Kubernetes node and message, for example. So it would be like different mix every time, because every time there is a new problem. But I really like in Kibana that the facets and and you can click in the data, so you don't have to write, and it's faster. I mean, graphical user interfaces should be faster when they're faster, or otherwise
exactly.
we would use like CLIs and I don't know. So I definitely feel the need for it, because I myself, like, if it's harder, or if I have to process like 1 billion rows, I definitely go to just web UI, and or if I have to join something, because it's impossible to join or aggregate. But like, these lighter interfaces are definitely, for me at least, they are really needed.
Thank you.
But then you want to interact with the values on the field itself and not folding them out first.
Yeah. I mean, the web UI guys in Kusto, they created the like easier filters when you can click on cell and it will add, like, there is a feature for that, but it still isn't that easy as
I think you're referring to the extend function, right? Where you can drill into a JSON object, and then you can say, okay, extend this so that property actually moves up the chain, to explain it in simple ways. Yeah.
I mean, when it's like a little bit harder, of course, like, we just go to KQL, but still.
Actually, we do consider it's a good point to also extend to do it without need to write KQL. You can just right click, extend what you need, and it will create your the column you asked. We also think in this direction, it seems.
Yeah. And then, of course, behind the scenes, you could maybe do something for the filter, like first do an MV expound and you get the sort of magic. That's actually something I noticed during testing. But I'm a little bit cheating. So I start with simple mode. Then I think, okay, I want to do an extend, an MV expand. If I then go back to simple mode, so I start in simple mode. I want to extend a column. I then do an MV expand. I add a filter to it. I noticed that when I then go back to simple mode, basically my UI is lost.
Yeah, it's a problem that we try to circumvent, because we would be able to, like, if we want to show you the UI, then we would need like a UI for the entirety of the KQL capabilities, which would take us like a decade to do, and then it won't be simple. So we did try to have a happy middle ground, but we do plan to add functionality to the simple mode, for example, like extending a column, that you won't have to go to the advanced mode to do it, and then you would still be able to still stay in the simple mode and do the stuff that you want without having the need to fall back on advanced mode, right? That's the idea.
Yeah. Or let's assume I share a more complex query, but the end user will access the data in simple mode, so he can basically work from there.
Yeah, that's exactly what was our thought.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think this back and forward, I mean, we had the same discussion already when a similar thing was introduced in Defender XDR, where there was also this wizard. And I think for those that develop queries, I mean, going back and forward doesn't really probably make sense in a daily use case. But if you want to prepare something, let's call it in advanced mode, but then share it in simple mode, so that people can continue from there doing filtering, that would be awesome. So, like, the initial query would be kind of locked in. That's your starting point. And then from there, you will start doing your further pivoting, etc.
Yeah.
Cool.
So maybe I can use this opportunity to coincide with you guys about another topic, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So we hear from our customers, let me share my screen, but sometimes when they have complex data, for example, JSON or dynamic columns, that this view is not so convenient. So I think maybe you're familiar with what US6 did. Okay, you're familiar with US6, right? The Defender, actually, Defender a product that has kind of side panel. Okay, you see my screen? Inspect record. Okay.
Yeah.
And they actually, they used to have only inside record, side panel, and now they implemented actually kind of Evron, this functionality expand collapse like we have.
Yeah.
So they have actually now two options, okay? We also consider to have this kind of side panel, okay, which will have you will be able to see a summary and JSON, and it's very useful for long or big text or JSON text. It might be very useful. But I would like to consult with you, first of all, if you think that having two modes, what is from your experience, even if you played with US6, having two modes, this one, collapse, expand, and also side panel, what do you think about this, if it's convenient, if it's less convenient? So I would like to hear your feedback.
Yeah, it's funny you bring this up. I mean, I've been advocating for the log analytics view for years now with the Defender team, because when I really want to work with the data, I actually like the initial view rather than always, the side panel, and then you have to right click, and then, the query was inserted somewhere, and you have to make sure you're at the right position. But on the other hand, when you need to just look at the data and understand the data, it's usually more organized in the side panel, because it kind of allows you to start top down. The nested objects are properly shown on the right side, without you having to click and expand those things. Although I believe that the side panel right now only supports one nested level, so it will be something for those familiar with security tables, like you always have an additional fields table. But as soon as that additional fields table would have again, nested objects, I think today you're not seeing that in the side panel. But yeah, from my point of view, my feedback would be give us both. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't harm. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
But that's just my opinion.
Additional question, where will be recording available? Okay, I think question to you, Alex. Okay, we share record.
Yeah,
okay, you
I
answered.
understand.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if we can already share this private preview bit, so that we should wait a bit.
Yeah, no, we will pass just in a few minutes. I will pass you the flag. You already can use it in every region. I will explain you. You can add this flag, and feel free to add your feedback. You can write me directly. Okay, I will post also my email. Feel free, or you can just click feedback and add feedback on the site. We will really appreciate your feedback, and you can give this flag to your users and use it freely, and it will be available, I believe, in 1 to 3, maximum 3 months. It will be available for all.
Yeah, and let me share with the audience who are not familiar with the terminology of flag. So no rocket science, you just add to your portal.azure.com portal, you add another flag, and that will open your portal in that preview mode, so that you actually see that toggle box in your Log Analytics Explorer. Yeah. So it's nothing you have to activate in your tenant. You don't have to go and ask your administrator if you can enable this. It's a pure, I hope I explained it correctly.
Yeah.
It's a pure UI thing, how the portal is being presented to you. Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you.
Good. So maybe some others. Johnny, what do you think about the panel flying window versus the expand option in the grid view?
Great question. So for me, I prefer the Defender one, because I don't like folding out my records, but I think that's personal flavor. And I would like to prefer to interact or with the lines directly or with a fold-out pane, because then you don't lose oversight on your view. But that's yeah, it's personal preference.
You mean a side panel? Side panel is
Yeah.
is more okay.
Yeah,
Because if you
another
have
argument
like
I would have is that the side panel is always limited to just one record. And
Mhm.
depending on the data I look at, I might actually expand a few of them and browse through them, to see, can I expect the same values in records, etc. Yeah, but yeah, like Jenny mentioned, it's, I guess, a preference thing. So both of them would be great.
because for me the hardest thing is if you're folding out a record, and then you have like 30 lines, and then you fold out the second one, and then you're scrolling, and then if you open 10, you will get lost. You have to look at the timestamp, and am I at the first one, at the second one? So then a side pane, or if you could directly click or right click the records, then it's also nice, or the values in the record.
Mhm. And having these two options, it's not confusing. You know when to use side panel, when to use the collapse expand.
Yeah, for me, I think a side panel would work better, but that's, well.
Okay, understood. Okay, so thank you very much for your feedback.
Thank you for showing it to us.
Yeah.
Well, actually, if we have the UI designers on board, I would actually like to take the opportunity, and maybe someone is with me. Whenever I find things in the Local Analytics UI, if I want to copy the value, like a simple thing like tenant ID, the problem is if I then head over to Enter ID and I want to search and paste, I always get too much information out of my clipboard. Because first of all, it's adding a lot of spaces to copy. And sometimes it's even adding some additional information that I actually don't want in my clipboard. I just want to have that cell, that value that I just copied.
Can you maybe demonstrate what you just said? Because I'm not familiar with that, and I thought it would work as you described. Like if I click on a cell, it would just copy the value within the cell, not anything else.
Yeah.
But maybe
I can. Give me 1 second. As a good citizen, I have to MFA myself into my environment. Okay. And let me show you what I mean. Okay. So let me go here. Let me go here. Logs. Bang, bang, bang. Always the same. Yeah, if you work in private mode, you're clicking those boxes a million times. Oh, that would also be a favor. Can I get rid of this box? Permanent.
we are working on it. Hint,
Yeah.
hint, we are working on it.
Signing logs. Yeah, take 100. Okay. Of course, I haven't logged on, so. Okay, great. So, resource ID. Let's copy this one, or let's do another one. Correlation ID. Yeah, great. Okay, I now have correlation ID. I go to my portal Azure, just for the sake of this. And now I do a search here, and I paste. You see, it's always adding the blanks. Yeah.
That's weird.
And in other columns, it's actually even adding sometimes even more data to it. Okay, here not. Let me see if it's not here, but in my notepad. So quickly have to do that.
Those empty spaces are weird because I just tried like
Yeah.
copying a value from my logs and pasted it somewhere else, and it just pasted like the only the characters, not something else. What you describe here is like I think you discovered a bug.
And sometimes, but I cannot quickly reproduce it. I got something like this, and then it says something like, resource something afterwards.
Yeah, obviously it should only copy the value within the cell.
Yeah.
It will try to hunt this bug down.
Yeah, that would really be super easy because especially when you're doing incident analysis and you have a specific computer name, or I'm using values that I want to enter in my code. I spend a lot of time in removing the white spaces.
Yeah, obviously it's not intentional. It should only copy the value.
Okay, cool. Okay, anyone else has a question, feature request? No licensing questions?
Feel free. Anything you want.
It's free.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, it's not about you. People don't like to speak in public usually. Yeah. The questions always come afterwards.
We would be happy to answer them.
Good. Well, if there's no more questions about this, thank you both very much for joining us. And yeah, if at any time you have more news or something new, cool thing to share that you guys are doing in log analytics, let us know. And if you like to stay, you're of course welcome as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good. Then we continue with Johnny. I guess since you are going to show the next part, it's best you share the slides yourself.
Yes. Yeah. So here's the deck. There's a small comment about the link that it's not working. Check.
Sorry, you mean link I sent or something different?
Okay, for me the feature flag is working. Can you validate, Sergey?
Okay, we will check later. Yeah.
Cool. So.
Okay, feel free. I also will leave here my email, so feel free to write me directly if any issue. I will write it.
Thank you.
So back to KQL and the detections. So one of the things, there's a lot of sources for Kusto queries. You have the KQL search, you have blogs, but there are also standards like, for instance, Sigma. And so sorry about that. So what it is with Sigma is a community project where there are about 3,000 queries regarding threats, regarding hunting, regarding new vulnerabilities, and threat researchers share them on GitHub so people can reuse them. And also there are ways to, of course, to convert them. So I wanted to demo that a bit because you can run into Sigma and then you might want to convert it. So what it is, if we go to Sigma, we have the Sigma HQ is the organization on GitHub, and they have a Sigma repository, and in there we have a lot of cool things. So if we go, for instance, to emerging threats. We can see some new ones. And for instance, if we go to, let's see, malware, and then is there a new one updated, the Pikabot? And there are some updates yesterday. So the cool thing about this standard is you can describe your detection or your query. You can make a description, and then below here you have a nice query. And if you worked a lot with the Defender data, you can quite easily see, okay, so we have an parent, we have an initiating process, we have an initiating process parent file name, which is this one, but you have to have done that several times. So what they did is they created a nice converter. Now, if we go to sigconverter.io, we can paste the rule in there, and then we can say, hey, there are several backends, and backend is just the target for the detection. So now it's on Splunk, but we use KQL in Defender. Oh, this is nice. Okay, this one crashed. So let's grab one a bit simpler then. If we go to emerging threats again, 2023, TA. This one is newer. This one is a bit more simpler. And here over here we have the command line should contain this, and then it's possible related to the Peach Sandstorm. So we go back to the converter, paste it in, and here you can see it quickly takes the fields which it needs. It maps the command line so it knows its device process events. And because it's command line, you also know it's process command line because that's the field. And this is fun if you have to do a single query. But now the question is, what happens if you have, like, you want to maybe get the whole repository, or maybe you want to do something with CI/CD? Then you can use the same backend from Python to convert this. So then what we'll do is we'll grab the same one again. We can go to Visual Studio Code or wherever you run your Python scripts. And we have over here, so this is just, we're working with Sigma. We have the Defender backend, which we ingest. And we define the Sigma rule. And in Python, it's always important to make sure that you indent properly. Because if you don't place the initiating tab here, then it will probably fail. Can test it in a minute. And then it creates the backend and it runs it. So if we run this one, then we have the same outcome as what we saw on the website. And what now would be fun is if we just check the other one which crashed. So we go back to here to see if it's maybe a formatting on the website or if it's something else. It can be, of course, that a field wasn't recognized, but let's see. Let's run it first without adding tabs. Okay, so now it crashes, and if we put in the tab, okay, it still crashes. And in this side, what happens is the backend currently doesn't know yet about grandparent image. In this case, in Defender for Endpoint, it would be the initiating process parent file name, because you have the file name, initiating process file name, and the initiating process parent file name. Those are the three layers in the Defender for Endpoint. So that's why it's also failed on the website. Let's see. Let's go back to what we wanted to show. So we have the converter, we have the backend. The contributor also added it here. It was the Stephen Lincoln. He works for ITechIQ. So maybe we should give him a ping that we have a new field which we want, or maybe we should update the backend file ourselves. Then I had some queries. So I'll also share I created a simple Python file and I will share it after the show. So this is the query. Here is the results. So, and what did we do with KQL this month? So this is one is your Alex.
Yeah, let me first ask. I mean, is anyone on the audience actually using Sigma rules or Sigma defined rules as a source? And if yes, how do you go about making them KQL alike? Do you do it manually, or were you already familiar with the converters? Or never heard about Sigma? Okay, good. Okay,
Yeah, so like I said, it's a nice framework. You also have other frameworks. You have the one from Palantir, for instance, where they've made a real nice broad framework that you describe your detections and your queries. And in the end, it's just about explaining the detections for yourselves to you, so you can understand them later, but also to validate things that's still configured as you thought of before.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you are on the lookout for good detection sources, of course, the KQL community is growing. A hint again to Ugur's KQL search, where we also see more and more contributors. So great place. But yeah, if you happen to work in another field, or you're familiar with, or you want to look over what others do, beyond, let's say, the Microsoft product stack, definitely a cool way how you can bring, other types of detection queries into your KQL without having to rewrite everything. Good. So then let's move on with what have we done this month. I have a couple of nice little things. Of course, most of them are today specific to using the Microsoft security stack. So those here or who watched the video, you might have heard that Microsoft last year introduced what they call streamlined connectivity. So if you ever happened to deploy Defender for Endpoint in your environment where there is proxy servers in the way, you were facing, let's call it, a nice large list of exceptions that you have to submit to your proxy management team, and also tell them not to SSL inspect them, etc. As otherwise the product might not work or with reduced functionality. Now, usually it was quite a big list. That list actually consists, when we speak about Defender for Endpoint, of pure Defender for Endpoint components. But of course, in order to run Defender for Endpoint, you need Windows Update, because that's how definition files are being deployed. If you are using that security and you use Smart Screen, it also has its own endpoint. And there was also a limitation for those customers that actually could not define service endpoints, but only could handle IP addresses to be whitelisted. So with the streamlined connectivity, we now have the possibility to also use a defined set of IP addresses, but also the list of service endpoints, or let's call it for simplicity, URLs that you had to provide have been dramatically reduced by about 60%, which is great. So although there's no end of life date yet for the current way of connecting, if you're deploying Defender for Endpoint fresh, or if you think of, let's say, deploying Windows 11, this might be a good opportunity to start using that new onboarding method. I mean, technically nothing changes. The only thing that changes is your onboarding file that now has endpoint.microsoft.security.com, something like that, in its URL instead of a whole bunch of other URLs. Now, I'm busy with deploying this at one of our customers. So the question is, where are we with that deployment? So I figured that in the device info table, we now have a nice new attribute that is actually called connectivity type. So as you progress with your deployment, you can actually, look for that connectivity type. That attribute currently is not yet synchronized with Microsoft Sentinel. So for those that are, forwarding their Defender logs into Sentinel, but I just had the pleasure yesterday to speak to the program manager there about that, and she promised me to take a look into that. So if you prefer Sentinel, you can also use hopefully soon the connectivity type statistics there as well. The next one, again, related to Defender for Endpoint, they have decided to duplicate the threat protection reporting. And, some people were not happy because they prefer a report. But as they state, everybody has its own reporting needs. So in my view, they are doing right by saying, well, leverage KQL advanced hunting to get, the reporting you like. So what I did here basically is, not all the data, unfortunately, is exposed in advanced hunting, but I would say the most relevant data. So I've created a bunch of simple queries that if you are still, having to report KPIs or want to get those numbers out of the system, here are the corresponding queries. So no rocket science, but just an alternative in KQL. And then the next one, in Defender for Office, what we can do, what we should do, what every company should do, is to set that policy under the Defender for Office 365 settings, where you can basically configure how you want your tenant to behave when it comes to external forwarding. And as a general advice, to avoid data leakage or any hackers manipulating inbox rules, you're advised to actually, do not allow automatic forwarding outside of your tenant or your domain. So that configuration is done here. But yeah, who guarantees that that is not going to change, either unintentionally, maybe by an administrator who doesn't know what he's doing, or is not aware of the impact, as I've recently seen with a similar setting when it came for example, to team who is allowed to invite people into teams. So I thought it's a good idea to set a detection on that for both either malicious or unintentional change of that policy setting. So as soon as someone modifies this setting, that information is exposed actually in two tables. So if you're just working in Defender XDR and you have Cloud App Security connected as well, and in Cloud App Security, again, you have the Office app connector configured. I know it sounds complicated, but it isn't. You actually get those logs exposed in your Cloud App events. The beauty of Cloud App events is that the Cloud App events already aggregate some data in the backend, like country, ISP, and that sort of information. You can also, as I share in my query, access the Office activity data. If you are working with Microsoft Sentinel only and you have the Office 365 connector configured, you will also see exactly this action type or operation name, activity objects name. You will also see that in the Office activity table, but there you don't get the additional information like ISP and client information. But yeah, of course, you have IP information, and with the nice IP functions that we have in log analytics, you can, of course, again get to that same data like geolocation, country, city, etc. So I hope you found this useful. Good. Then the next one is from Johnny.
Yes. Let me take back the screen again. This one. Okay, so this month I was playing around a bit with the SocGolish data, because there are some adversary which use the data or which use JavaScript to bypass certain detections, because they want to what they do, they generate content over JavaScript on your machine. So it will look like it's downloaded, but it won't pass the firewall because it's generating the data by themselves. And I wanted to show some things in there. Because so what we want to see is we have we want to see device file events which create JavaScript files. But we need to play around a bit with the data, because if you just look like this, then you will see a ton of data. In this case, in the last 30 days, with only my 2 test devices. So it's not a good way to just basically detect only on this. So what you want to do is you want to play around a bit with the data. And one of the things you can do is, if you look where the folder path contains the account name of the user who is creating it, or is running the program which created the file. And you might also want to check the temp folders, because by default these 2 are the user writable folders. But it's always a nice place for adversaries to place their files at. But if you look like this, we still have a lot of files. So what I did yesterday, let me check if it's here. Star contains atomic. So one of the testing platforms which you can use is Atomic Red Team, which you has some scripts and some tools to emulate attacks. And in this case, I launched this specific file just to open a JavaScript and to collect some data from the system. In this case, it was, is it in a work group? Is it, what's the host name, and basic stuff like that. But if you want to be more advanced, you can create files, for instance. Well, nowadays it's not a bigger problem, but it used to be a lot of Word files with macros. And when we start looking at this data, we can see, hey, JavaScript file was created from PowerShell, which might not be a good sign, because if you would expect it, then it might be from 7-zip or from files like that. So you can also see in my basic environment. So the good news is most of the data I have here, it's all just so straightforward. So we don't find a lot of strange things here. So let's see distinct. So if you don't do a lot of crazy things, these are the places you can expect JavaScript. So MSCXSec is probably a legitimate one. Maybe Dropbox if it's syncing things. But then if you see a PowerShell or Edge creating JavaScript files, then it's a good thing to look into. And also there was a blog from Kevin Beaumont who also created some detections for this. And what he did is he would verify the file origin URL, because by default Windows is writing down all the origins from files or their IP addresses so that you can have some forensics on it. If there's a file created, then it's usually having a origin URL. So if we just say distinct file origin URL, and then you can see where files are coming from. And you can also create the detection specifically on origins. And you can also do, because if a user clicked on a link, in this case, what usually happens is they claim to be a Windows update or a browser update, and then they have the big download button, and once you click it, it will launch the JavaScript to perform the next actions. So what could also be an idea is, besides using the device file events, you can also use the device network events. That's in my environment. I didn't create anything, but if you imagine a bit, you can say, hey, if I have a JavaScript which is being launched, then it will be ran by cscript.exe or by wscript.exe. But in this case, fortunately, my machine is clean. But this would also be a nice factor to check if strange things happen. And it's also nice. I will, at the end of the show, when we put the show notes online, I will share the queries so you can play around a bit with them in your environment. So does anyone have any questions regarding this?
Yeah, what's the about internet?
That's
there.
This one. So what happens is, if you have the specific cases where they download files, then one of the options is that you will see in the file origin URL, you see the about internet, because when you open your browser, it launches the about internet page. So when the JavaScript is started, sometimes it will also show the file origin URL about the internet.
Okay, and is that an equals to, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so it would not be like www.kustoking.com about internet.
Because it's actually just this page, but in Edge it doesn't like it anymore.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Okay. No, I was just curious because when you did the distinct URL before, we saw a lot of HTTP addresses.
Yeah. But then it was without the JavaScript, so those are all my PDF and Word downloads.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. Okay. Thanks for that.
Right. And I think we'll have a short one today.
Shorter, or maybe as promised, not longer than 1.5 hours. So yeah, with that, we come to an end of our January 24 session. Let me quickly bring up our schedule. I think it's worth sharing. So we have some really cool guests coming again. next month. So we have Fabian Bader. If you are doing KQL actively in the security space, I'm pretty sure you have heard his name. Then we have Purav. Maybe Johnny, you can tell a little bit more about Purav.
Yeah, sure. Purav is a long friend of mine, and he did some really cool research about the unified audit logs, and he's also really experienced with the other KQL. So we'll see on which of two he wants to talk about, because the other KQL is you have the keyword query language, which is also by Microsoft, but then in the Exchange neighborhood. So you can be talking about one of both, or maybe some. We'll see during that time which one he will be talking about.
Cool. Yeah, and I mean, even if you're like, well, I don't use that, at least you can shine bright. If ever someone approaches you, I have this KQL issue, where you can say, oh, that's the other KQL thing. Yeah. Great. Then we have Henning Rauch coming up in April.
Professor Smoke.
Yeah, exactly. So if you've done the Kusto Detective series, or you're still working on them, like me, you definitely should join us in April. And then in May, we have Nicolas Suter. He is very active in the identity space, and he has also demonstrated, to use KQL in various other fields when it comes to monitoring and security. And we'll keep adding guests. Again, I know we repeat ourselves, but if at any time you want to either contribute to the show actively by presenting something, or just sending someone something, if you feel like I'm not like talking, but you'd like to share something, you know how to reach us. Share what you'd like us to present on your behalf as well. That is cool as well. And I hope by the examples that we show you, it doesn't always have to be rocket science. It can be the simple things. Just the latest query I shared on Sunday evening about this policy change. I just thought, let's throw that out. Maybe someone finds it useful. And then, you get hundreds of link clicks and Twitter and forwarding. And sometimes I ask myself, okay, but I had developed a more complex query a couple of months ago, and nobody seemed to care. So the message is, sometimes the beauty can also be in the simplicity. Thanks again for joining and staying with us, or for those that watch the recording, for watching that one. And we look forward to see you back in the end of February. Until then, have a great time, stay safe, and have a good rest of the week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.